Okay, so before we get into any of the big breaking news stuff that Donald Trump did while I was gone, I released my big note dump on January 6th, basically compiling all of the reading that I've done on January 6th with citations. It's very nifty, covers every ground or every claim that I make in these debates. Here's the table of contents right here. It goes over the overall or the summary of events, and this is what I'm going to be reading in this video. The background, so like all of the people involved in the plot and all of the legislation and civics involved in the plot. We go over the claim of lying about election fraud. We go over the John Eastman and the John Eastman memo and the legality of alternative electors. We go over weaponizing the federal government. We go over harassing the state legislators, and we go over harassing poll watchers. We go over harassing Mike Pence, and we go over the Capitol riot. There's also a bunch of bad talking points that are given by the right, in which I address in this Substack post. And it gives a full timeline in order of all of the stuff that I cover in this document. It's a really big document. If you want to get to learn stuff about January 6th, even if you think you know a lot, I've talked to a lot of people who do know a lot about January 6th, and I've read them the document in order to proofread it, and there was stuff in here that they didn't even know about. So if you don't know anything about January 6th, this gives you everything you would need to know. If you know a lot about January 6th, this gives you new information. I almost guarantee it. And yeah, if you're a debater and you're looking for citations, it's all sourced. So if you want to check it out, the link is in the description. I'll go over basically the summarization of the entire document right now, and then if you want citations for specific claims, then go to the Substack post in the description. It's all there. Okay. Overall, even prior to his re-election bid in 2020, Donald Trump has a history of undermining every election he's been a part of. He has spread very familiar-sounding claims of illegal votes being cast in the 2016 presidential election. However, these claims fell to the side when Donald Trump was declared the winner. This is because Donald Trump's main motivations are to undermine his election losses rather than maintain election integrity. According to Article 2 of the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act of 1887, electors are appointed to the states according to the whole number of senators and representatives. Each state determines for itself how to appoint electors apportioned to it. However, every state has codified into law that they appoint their electors according to the popular vote in their state. First, the respective political parties nominate a slate of potential electors who would go on to transmit their electoral votes upon their candidate winning. After Election Day, the ECA required that each state to ascertain or determine the electors who would represent the state's voters by casting electoral votes on behalf of the candidate who won the popular vote. Next, the executive of each state, the governor, certifies to the federal government the identities of those electors. Then, on a date set by the ECA, or the Electoral Count Act, each state's ascertained electors are required to cast electoral votes based on their state's popular vote and to send their electoral votes along with the state executive's certification that they are the state's legitimate electors to the United States Congress to be counted and certified in an official proceeding. Finally, on the 6th of January, following Election Day, the Congress meet in a joint session for a certification proceeding, presided over by the Vice President as the President of the Senate, to count electoral votes, resolve any objections, and announce the result, thus certifying the winner of the presidential election as President-elect. This is the complicated way of saying that the people vote for the president, and the electors appointed to each state transmit those votes to Congress on January 6th for the results to be certified. On December 14th, the state-chosen electors of the Electoral College met and formalized Biden's victory with 306 electoral votes cast for Biden and 232 electoral votes cast for Trump. However, in secrecy from the state's governments and from the media, Excuse me. The Trump campaign assembled their own electors to cast votes for Donald Trump instead of the winner, Joe Biden. Only the state's certified electors were supposed to be in the state's capitals to submit their electoral votes. However, in 7 states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, false electoral votes for Donald Trump were attempted to be submitted to the joint session of Congress on January 6th, along with the state certified votes for Joe Biden. In each case, the false electors signed a copy of an Electoral College certificate of ascertainment proclaiming Trump and Pence the victors and sent it to the National Archives and to Congress. The, quote, electors that signed these papers in some cases were not even the Republican electors chosen by the state's respective political parties. In 5 of the 7 alternative certificates contain no indication that they were not genuine. In 2 of the states, they were to be made valid if fraud was found. However, the Trump campaign actively fought this clarification being added. Upon his loss in November 2020, Donald Trump, as expected, started spreading unfounded claims of fraud to call the results of the 2020 election into question, claims of which had been disproven multiple times by campaign officials, state representatives, and claims in which he personally said sounded quote-unquote crazy. Using these false claims, Donald Trump put undue pressure onto state officials, all of which were open Republicans, to recall their electors via holding special sessions of their legislatures to replace the already certified electoral votes for Biden with the unofficial and fraudulent electoral votes for Trump. Trump did this while providing no evidence of fraud that would call these elections into question, and despite the popular vote of the people in those respective states. After no state recalled their electors, Trump attempted to irresponsibly wield the power of the Department of Justice to report to states that they had found significant fraud in their elections, even though no such fraud had been found, and he had been told that by high-up officials in his campaign and in the DOJ. This was again to pressure states' officials to hold special legislative sessions to recall their rightful electors for Trump's fraudulent electors. When these letters to the states had been turned away by the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, Donald Trump attempted to fire the Attorney General and replace him with an unqualified environmental civil lawyer in the DOJ who agreed to send the letter, Jeffrey Clark. The reason Trump never fired his AG was due to threat of an exodus of the DOJ civil servants if Jeffrey Clark gained office. After Trump's campaign realized that the states would not recall their legally cast electoral votes, Donald Trump and lawyer John Eastman, among other Trump campaign officials, attempted to enlist the vice president to use his role at the January 6th certification proceeding to fraudulently alter the election results. They asked Mike Pence to unilaterally decertify electors sent by the states and to unilaterally certify Trump's fraudulent electors, or to force the states to recertify their electors afterwards, both an effort to undemocratically extend Trump's term in office. Excuse me. This explicitly violates the Electoral Count Act. This explicitly violates the Electoral Count Act as it lays out that Mike Pence does not have the authority to unilaterally act in the counting process. Mike Pence rejects this idea on these grounds and goes through with certifying Joe Biden as president. When it becomes clear that Mike Pence would not break the law in order to reinstate Trump as the president, Donald Trump used inflammatory rhetoric to a self-admittedly angry crowd, specifically directed at Mike Pence, to encourage the people to, quote, march on to the Capitol. Once it becomes clear that the protesters at the Capitol have violent intentions, Trump refused to send the rioters home. Instead, Trump continued to inflame the crowd against Mike Pence for his refusal and places multiple calls to congressmen to further disrupt the certification proceeding. Special counsel Jack Smith alleges that when Donald Trump lost the 2020 presidential election, he resorted to crimes to try and stay in office. With private co-conspirators, Trump launched a series of increasingly desperate plans to overturn the legitimate election results in 7 states that he had lost, the targeted states. His effort included lying to state officials in order to induce them to ignore true vote counts, manufacturing fraudulent electoral votes in the targeted states, attempting to enlist the Vice President Michael R. Pence in his role as President of the Senate to obstruct Congress's certification of the election by using the defendant's fraudulent electoral votes, and when all else had failed, on January 6, 2021, directing an angry crowd of supporters to the United States Capitol to obstruct the congressional certification. The through line of these efforts was deceit. Trump and co-conspirators knowingly false claims of election fraud. They used lies in furtherance of 3 conspiracies: conspiracy to interfere with a government function, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump and his allies engaged in an attack on our democracy to subvert the votes of 7 different states' voters in order for him to remain in power. In this document, I provide further detail on the specific points and provide pushback on common talking points used to excuse this by Republicans and Trump supporters. If any of that interested you, if any of that got your gander, check out the Substack link in the description where I go over all of this and provide substantiation for all of this. Thank you.